So here's one of the things I'm kind of struggling with today, and I'm really trying to figure out like what's right here because we're so busy. Us Americans, we're so busy just trying to make it, trying to survive, right? Because it's hard, right? The economy's tough. They printed a whole bunch of money, and so our money doesn't go very far, and a lot of our incomes didn't increase, and so we're like just barely surviving. It would be nice to have someone who can like a live-in nanny or a nanny, right? Or to put our kids into daycare or do this and that to make our lives a little bit more convenient, so we have a little bit more margin, but nowadays we're having to do a lot of things ourselves, just because we don't have the financial capacity, right, to hire like a cleaner to save a little bit more time. The economy has changed, so we're feeling squeezed. We don't have a lot of time, but then you read the word and it's like, man, we should be doing this and that, and we should be we should be doing a lot more for Christ. And it's like the conundrum is like, man, where's all this time? Like, I don't have all this extra time. And any extra time, I don't know if you're like me, but like any extra time that you do have, you want to spend resting, right? It's like, especially if you have kids, it's like you just want to rest after they go to bed. You just want to have that moment of rest, any extra margin that you have. But I've been feeling convicted. It's like, I just feel like I'm not doing enough. So in one sense, like in Timothy 5:8, it says, if anyone does not provide for their relatives, especially members of their family or their household, he has denied the faith and is worse than a non-believer. Well, a lot of us have to, like I own my own business. So I have to work like overtime just to provide for the family. I'm in real estate, and real estate has been slower. And for other people, they have to work 2 to 3 jobs, or they have to work 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week, right? So they're genuinely so squeezed in their time to survive, just financially survive, because we're called to provide for our family. But then you have, okay, so Matthew chapter 25, and I encourage you guys to read this, but essentially there are multiple parables there, right? The number one is like the parable of the 10 virgins. So 5 of them were wise, 5 of them were foolish. The bridegroom came, and the 5 foolish ones weren't ready, right? They were out trying to buy oil because they already spent it, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously the foolish ones were they were well, I guess they were foolish. And then, in right after that, there's another parable of the talents. And I feel like Jesus is driving a point where it's like, the parable of the talents is you have 2 wise people who like invested their, the master's money and made a profit. And then you have that one who was foolish. He was a foolish servant, and he just buried the money in the ground. And, the master said, "You wicked and lazy servant," right? "You should have at least put it in the bank so you can get some kind of interest." And then there's another parable that talks about the sheep and the goats, and talks about how the goats, hey, listen, take your inheritance. You did well. And then you talk about the sheep who, basically says that they will go away into eternal punishment. And then he talks about in that same thing, and he also talks about, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink," et cetera, right? So when I read Matthew 25, my honest feeling about it is it feels like a works mentality. It feels like Jesus is like, hey, there's got to be works. And then when I think about the works that I have to do, I'm like, man, I guess I can cut out the extra hour that I have, the 2 hours that I have to, do more gospel type of work or help more people. But man, I mean, burnout is a real thing, and I've certainly done it. And so it's like this thing where like my conundrum is like, first of all, it feels like, Jesus, you're telling me that it's about works. Like, I got to feed the hungry. I got to visit, when you're in prison, you visited me. I got to visit people, I got to clothe, I got to invite strangers into my home. And that takes time. It takes effort. It takes energy, but I don't have that much margin, right? It's like, I'm in America and I'm trying to make it. And, there's not that extra margin for me. I guess there is, but it's like, man, like then there's burnout. So I feel like a lot of Americans are actually in this place. And some conclusions, because I want to kind of get, drive this point, is that I guess some conclusion is the more I read the word, the more it feels very clear that it is not about works, right? That would be a false thing. It is not about works. Christ died, and that's why we're going to heaven. Now, it's not. It's not. That okay. I wrote it down here. So it's basically like works are diagnostic. They're not causative. So they show whether faith is alive or dead. I felt like that was a really good thing. That's not from me. That's from someone else. That it's not about our works, but it's about when Christ truly does come into our lives, when Christ truly does change us, we then, works naturally just comes out, right? But it's not about the works. But if you didn't have Christ, you would have no conviction or no need for works, or no want to do any kind of work. And so I think that's really, when it comes to work, I think that's what happens. I think the other conviction is that, I don't want to have this victim mentality that I can't do anything. What I've also realized is that we hang out with friends. When you become a parent, you tend to, create a lot of family friends and whatnot. And one of the things that I could do is I could talk about Christ in my conversations with our friends. There's a lot of non-Christian friends that we are around. And so I can, even with Christian friends, like, you can encourage them, you could help them in some way. You could, give financially here and there, or you can maybe let them borrow this, or give them, stuff in your house. And I guess there's ways to do it. And I think that's my conclusion. I don't know if this is fully resolved in my heart of like, I feel like I should be doing more. But I know there are ways I can be serving. Now, it's not like I don't serve. If you don't serve at your church, I do believe, first of all, if you don't go to church, I absolutely encourage you to go to church. I don't think that's like an optional thing. I think being around the body, I think that's a mandatory thing. Because that also is an area not necessarily for you to be served, but for you to serve. So I do serve at my church, and I just finished a 3-year eldership. I serve at the worship team, and I know I can serve a little bit more there. But still, I feel like I'm not doing enough. And then Matthew 25, you should read it for yourself. It can get quite confusing. So that's just kind of my struggle today. And I encourage you guys to kind of look through this and tell me what your thoughts are. Do you feel the same way? I mean, do you have an answer? Do you feel like, I should be looking at it in a different way? So anyway, hope that is encouraging, and we'll see you guys on the next video.